Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
It's not the greatest country in the world.
Finally, really did it. You maniac! I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore! You bring them death, and they will love him for it.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Hello, friends and enemies, and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics podcast. I am your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Thursday, November 14th, 2024. First, I'll just say there's construction going on in my neighborhood, so if you hear nail guns and stuff like that, or I think earlier was a saber saw, so, you know, if you hear that, apologies, I can't do anything about it, nor do I want to. Those people are working, let them work. But yesterday was fun, wasn't it? I was telling a friend that I am already back into the emotionally detached, morphine drop stream of consciousness required to read the news and not immediately want to start day drinking. Another favorite was in the gaming chat rooms. There were numerous calls for, it was a week ago, stop talking about politics. And I had to remind them, this is what you wanted. You voted for this. While Trump is president, he is the one injecting politics into everything. You want to talk about food? You're talking about RFK Jr. saying we need to ban processed foods like chips, cookies, and soda, including processed meats like your deli meat, sausage, and bacon. Want to talk about your family? Well, now you have to preface everything with, so one time my grandpa, who is a Trump voter, that includes the holidays coming up. Hey, Mike, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Well, I was going to drive up and visit my brother, but he's in a cult that's doomed the world, so now I'm just going to get one of those pre-made Jenny Loaf things before RFK Jr. bans them. Want to talk about sports? Holy shit! Well, in football, you can't have a sports show on any channel that doesn't bring up Aaron Rodgers, quarterback for the New York Jets, who is almost RFK Jr.'s vice presidential pick and thinks vaccines cause autism. Or Nick Bosa on the San Francisco 49ers, who went out of his way to interrupt a post-game interview in primetime wearing a MAGA hat. And it goes both ways. It's funny to me that almost every white player on the Kansas City Chiefs definitely voted for Trump. Yet they get attacked constantly because their tight end, Travis Kelce, is dating Taylor Swift. Even Kelce's brother, retired center Jason Kelce, is being followed around by pencil neck college students half his size with their smartphones out, calling him and his brother a word that sounds like maggot but starts with an F. Again, I have to emphasize the absolute balls these MAGA shits have to go up to a man who is 6'3" and weighs 295 pounds and has the reputation for being one of the meanest offensive linemen to ever play the sport. Even he is not immune to just walking the fuck around. Every woman who didn't conform to American beauty standards, but beat one who did, in the Olympics, was immediately accused of being a trans man. White people finally got a white woman who is great at basketball. And did they just quietly cheer her on? Did they acknowledge, wow, representation really does matter, because I didn't even know I loved women's basketball until I could see myself or my daughter in one of the players? Absolutely fucking not. The slurs aimed at black women who had the audacity to play against her was atrocious. And the white privilege was on full fucking display, because if any black woman acted like some of the fucking Karens in the audience at those games, they'd be socially wrecked, probably fired from their jobs, and banned from ever attending another women's basketball game ever again. And it's only going to get worse. When your kids come home from school saying they were made to pray, you're going to be talking about politics. When your produce aisle is empty because nobody picked the crops, you're going to be talking about politics. When your kids can't go to college because it's too expensive, you're going to be talking about politics. When your parents have to sell their house and start working as greeters in a Walmart because their social security has been reduced or deleted, you're going to be talking about politics. If you really thought the election was going to end it all, you were not paying attention. If you actually thought Trump was going to fix things, you are sorely mistaken. It's like conservatives actually thinking, well, when we return the question of abortion back to the states, that'll quiet things down, which was an actual argument John Roberts of the Supreme Court made. At least the Supreme Court was trolling. And alright, I suppose I should get into it. In the olden days, in the before times, I would have seen these nominations and come up with the obvious conclusion. There is no way even a Republican Senate confirms these people. If I was feeling generous, I'd say these people were all distractions. They'd be dismissed quickly, and Trump would nominate people just as bad, but more palatable and competent in their jobs. Then the Republicans could turn the lemons into lemonade and say, hey, we rejected the crazies. We're not like those evil Dems. But that was then. Not only do I think Trump actually intends for a Russian asset to become Director of National Intelligence, I also think the Republicans in the Senate are going to let it happen. He has 53 senators, so that ever-elusive carrot from Maine Senator Susan Collins of will she or won't she won't happen this time. Nobody gives a fuck what she has to say. He can afford to lose 3 votes, and J.D. Vance will approve the rest. But honestly, I don't think it even gets there. I don't think there will be hearings. Hearings would allow for Democrats to ask questions and point out just how horrible these people are. Democrats chomping at the bit for these hearings and debates are in for a rude awakening. Trump has already asked the Senate to just let him recess appoint them all. No muss, no fuss. See, last time around, some of his nominees were weakened by the hearings. Democrats actually asked tough questions and made some of them look bad. Or, like Jeff Sessions, painted him into a political corner. He promised to run the Attorney General's office independently of the president, and that he would recuse himself if necessary. Then Ukraine happened. Attorney General Jeff Sessions accused himself from the whole fucking thing, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed Robert Mueller as special counsel to investigate. Trump never forgave Sessions for recusing. I guarantee you that Senate hearing singularly is what sticks in his mind about confirmation hearings and cabinet nominations. There is no way he lets it happen. But Kyle, you say, the Senate won't willingly abdicate its constitutionally guaranteed duty. Friends and enemies, it won't be up to them. Friends and enemies, I give to you Article 2, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. Quote, he shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers of the United States. End quote. He may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. Per Ed Whelan of the Ethics and Public Policy Center, he is reporting Trump would enact this, then recess appoint his entire cabinet. But Kyle, you protest, the Senate could still reconvene and challenge or sue for the Supreme Court to resolve this dispute. Oh, my sweet summer child. There is no world where any Republican Senate reconvenes and does anything other than fling shit at itself. The Republicans would not be a unified bloc on this. Even if newly minted Senate Majority Leader Thune wanted to do this, at least 2/3 of his caucus would not. There is no way a brand new Senate Majority Leader begins his tenure by challenging the president of his own party, especially since his caucus will not be unified in opposing him. This Senate will not save you. There is also absolutely no chance of the Republicans asking the Supreme Court to intervene and force Trump to send his cabinet through the traditional nomination process. If they won't challenge him themselves, they are not asking the courts. But Kyle, the Democrats could sue. Sure, they could. And they would lose. Quickly. I doubt there'd even be a paper drafted for it. There'd be a dissent paper written by Sotomayor, Jackson, or Kagan, but there won't be an opinion from the ruling class. This Supreme Court will not save you. And even if I had an optimistic view of this whole thing, even if I thought Republicans had a backbone to fight against their cult leader, it just won't work. You cannot convince me it would, because last time the Senate wouldn't confirm his nominees, Trump just appointed acting cabinet members. We closed out the last Trump term with an acting attorney general after he fired Bill Barr. We had an acting secretary of defense after Mark Esper wouldn't shoot protesters, an acting secretary of transportation after Mitch McConnell displeased the Orange God King, so he fired his wife Elaine Chao, and we had 3 different acting secretaries of Homeland Security for the last 2 years of his presidency. Guess how many times the Republicans in the Senate fought to get those people into their chambers for confirmation hearings? 0. And how often did they fight Senate Democrats who wanted to do so? All the time. They ran cover for him and his acting cabinet. But Kyle, why does it matter if they're acting or not? Well, friends and enemies, I am glad you asked. There is no provision anywhere for acting cabinet members. If the 25th Amendment were invoked because the Orange God King stroked out at KFC, does an acting cabinet member get a vote? And in the line of succession, it currently goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, Secretary of State. Does the acting Secretary of State count? Because next on that list would be the Senate Majority Leader. Now, hypothetically, it's 2 years from now. Despite the odds, Democrats retake the Senate. Senator Elizabeth Warren is voted in as Senate Majority Leader. I know I'm going out there. Something horrible happens that takes out the President, Vice President, and Speaker. But Trump's Secretary of the State is acting. Can you just imagine the absolute shit show and constitutional crisis that would happen if the acting secretary refuses to concede just because it's a Democratic woman who would inherit the presidency? And I know the Supreme Court would resolve it in favor of the acting secretary, but still, if you think all that happens and there are not riots in the streets, I want what you're on. And honestly, it would happen either way. Could you imagine the MAGA experiment coming to an end because Trump's acting Secretary of State refuses to seek the presidency, handing everything over to that socialist Elizabeth Warren? But at this point, I don't care anymore. The argument has been made. If Trump wants crazy to run the country, we should let him have crazy run the country. MAGA didn't know what they were getting. This will let them know. I don't agree with that. I have seen weak-willed Democrats lay down over and over again my entire lifetime. I don't think the way to turn people away from MAGA is to lean into the idea that Dems don't do anything during a time when we desperately need them to do anything. This is America. This is the circus voters brought into town. Get used to it. Get numb to it. You broke it. You bought it.
End of line.